The Third Reich and Christianity by the Joy of Satan movement. Table of contents. We will have to deal with Christianity in a tougher way than hitherto. We must settle accounts with this Christianity, this greatest of plagues that could have happened to us in our history, which has weakened us in every conflict. If our generation does not do it, then I, Reichsführer Heinrich Himmler, it would drag on for a long time. We must overcome it within ourselves. Reichsführer Heinrich Himmler, speech to top leaders of the SS, June 9, 1942, Berlin. National Socialist and Christian conceptions are incompatible. The Christian churches are built upon men's ignorance. By contrast, National Socialism rests upon scientific foundations. When we, National Socialists, speak of belief in God, we do not mean, like the naive Christians and their spiritual exploiters, a man-like being sitting around somewhere in the universe. The force governed by natural law by which all these countless planets move in the universe, we call omnipotence or God. The assertion that this universal force can trouble itself about the destiny of each individual being, every smallest earthly bacillus, can be influenced by so-called prayers or other surprising things, depends upon a requisite dose of naivety, or else upon shameless professional self-interest. Reichsleiter Martin Bormann. Many people, due to misinformation, mistakenly believe that Nazi Germany was friendly to Christianity. This is not true by any stretch of the imagination. For those who are utterly confused, this website, the Joy of Satan movement website, proves beyond any doubt that not only were the Nazis anti-Christian and anti-Semitic, but the Third Reich leaders were actively working to destroy Christianity, both the Roman Catholic and Protestant churches. Well, we have done a personal research prior to this, and we did come across information that Hitler was noted as a good Roman Catholic, and apparently he wanted to restore Christianity, Jesus Christ, the religion, Christianity, because he felt that a certain faction or peoples were corrupting it, destroying it, trying to get rid of it. And there are pictures of Hitler meeting with the Pope of that day and members of the Roman Catholic Church and Roman Catholics standing on a doorstep or outside a certain place doing the infamous Nazi salute and so forth. Again, many people, due to misinformation, mistakenly believe that Nazi Germany was friendly to Christianity. This is not true by any stretch of the imagination. For those who are utterly confused, this website, again the Joy of Satan movement website, proves beyond any doubt that not only were the Nazis anti-Christian, but the Third Reich leaders were actively working to destroy Christianity, both the Roman Catholic and Protestant churches. The numerous occult symbols, namely the swastika and the SS rune symbols, are not only anti-Christian, but are labelled as satanic by the Christian churches. Each of the articles here provides numerous references and documented quotes by each of the top Third Reich leaders concerning their hatred of Christianity and their intent to completely destroy it and return to pre-Christian paganism. In truth, if one does enough research, Satanism is a catch-all label for paganism. Satan means enemy. In Hebrew, actually, it means accuser or adversary. Satan is the enemy to the Jewish people. We did find an icon, a JPEG of a person called Rosenthal that stated, supposedly quoted, stated that to the Jews, Satan is their God. But you need to verify that and establish the fact that he actually quoted that, because there's a lot of quotes out there that people say that certain people made and they never did. So you have to do your personal research on that. Satan is the enemy to the Jewish people. Satan is the god of the Gentiles. The leaders of the Third Reich knew this. Satanism is a collective label for paganism. Pagan means Gentile. Well, according to a French accented rabbi, he stated on one of the videos on YouTube that this Christian devil theory is incorrect, because how could God create an angel to do his bidding? That goes against it. Okay, if he was created to do God's bidding. And others say Lucifer was the planet, a Roman god, and all this sort of stuff. This French accented rabbi stated he compared this Lucifer to Willy Wonka's assistant Wilkinson, who whispered in the ears of the children that found the golden tickets, that if they get him an everlasting gobstopper, he would give them all the money, lots of money, and never-ending supply of chocolate and gobstoppers, etc. And it turns out in the end, because the young hero of the story, Willy Wonka, the boy, he gave back the everlasting gobstopper that he stole or pocketed, whatever, and Willy Wonka admired him for that. And Wilkinson came in, and he was afraid. He said, "Hey, that's that guy that." He says, No, that's my assistant." So this French accented rabbi says, "That's a comparison. He's a help for God. He tests each person, apparently, to see if they will fall, how they'll fall, all this sort of stuff." Okay. So here it says, Satanism is a collective label for paganism. Pagan means Gentile. Don't forget, this is according to the belief system of the Joy of Satan movement, who were nationalist, socialist, supremacists. We've already done a history of them and its founder, a woman, Dietrich, being married to a national socialist, supremacist, white nationalist, etc. And it basically fell apart. They lost a lot of members and all this sort of thing. Okay. So for the Mosaic religion, there's really nothing but a doctrine for the preservation of the Jewish race. Okay, Hitler was very anti-Semitic, as it states here. He didn't like them. Hence it embraces nearly every branch of sociological, political and economic knowledge that could ever come into question in connection with it. Adolf Hitler, Mein Kampf, which supposedly was written by the Jesuits, and he just signed to it because he agreed with it. Supposedly. You have to go do your research. Look, if you're brave enough, you don't care what other people think, go read the Oxford, possibly the unabridged version of Mein Kampf. We have most poo-poo it because it came from Hitler, supposedly he wrote it, whatever. So they automatically poo-poo it, they don't even bother to read it to find out what he actually said. Inside the dining hall, Himmler and his inner circle would perform various occult exercises, which included attempts to communicate with the spirits of the dead, Teutons, and efforts to influence the mind of a person in the next room through the concentration of willpower. There was no place for Christianity in the SS, and members were actively encouraged to break with the church. Apparently, old Adolf here, according to H.P. Blavatsky of the Theosophical Society, a Russian Jew, used to say that Hitler stated that Hitler had fits of rage with somebody that no one else could see, supposedly alien greys, who said, well, give us bodies and we'll give you power, etc., etc., whatever you want. That's according to her, H.P. Blavatsky. New religious ceremonies were developed to take the place of Christian ones. For instance, a winter solstice ceremony was designed to replace Christmas. Starting in 1939, the word Christmas was forbidden to appear in any official SS document, and another ceremony for the summer solstice. Gifts were to be given at the summer solstice ceremony rather than at the winter solstice. Besides Christmas, weddings and christenings were also replaced by pagan rituals and pagan myths, as we saw earlier in this chapter, influenced Himmler's choice of Wewelsburg as SS Order Castle. The meticulous work of Peter Lavender, Unholy Alliance, A History of Nazi Involvement with the Occult by Peter Lavender, May 24, 2002, in unearthing previously unpublished documents for the period, allows us to consider the pagan worldview of the Anenebe and the SS. The files of the Anenebe contained an article by A.E. Muller, originally published in a monthly journal called Lower Saxony in 1903, which describes the celebration of the summer solstice at the Sternsteiner monument near the Wewelsburg in the mid-19th century. As Lavender notes, these motifs are common in the Volkisch underpinnings of Nazism. So the folk, was it the folkish? The folk-ish? The Volkisch? What does that mean? It's like folklore? Not too sure. Underpinnings of Nazism, with the serpent thought of as an archetype of evil in Christianity, considered sacred by the Aryans. Above quote taken from Invisible Eagle, The History of Nazi Occultism by Alan Baker, 2000. Central to the secret initiation that the senior SS generals received was the real significance of the anagram SS itself. For the rank and file elite of the SS, the initials stood for the word Schurz. Kind of hard to see, is that a T? Schutz or Schulstaffel, a term meaning loosely a special staff or military unit. But to the initiates there was another meaning of SS altogether, a meaning with roots deep in the occult and in ancient Sumerian, Babylonian, and to a certain extent Egyptian belief. For these initiates, the letters SS refer to the Die Schwarze Sonne, the Black Sun. Schwarze Sonne, the Black Sun. Above quote taken from Reich of the Black Sun, Nazi Secret Weapons and the Cold War, Allied Legend by Joseph P. Farrell, 2004. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party came to power in 1933. Most occult leaders believe Hitler was the Great One. 555 is the Kabbalistic equivalent of an ancient Hebrew term meaning darkness. So those out there who know the Kabbalah really, really well, who practice it, whatever, you could probably verify that by subscribing to our channel, to add any comment and telling us all about it. Is it true, or is this guy took him through a hole in his head? 555 is the Kabbalistic equivalent of an ancient Hebrew term meaning darkness. Also, 555 is the numerical value of the word Necronomicon. Hitler's Nazi Party number was 555. The party began its numbering system at 500 to appear larger than it really was. The supposed truth is that Hitler was a Satanist. Being a politician, he worked at being diplomatic, given the power of the Christian churches at that time. Hitler was the long-awaited leader that many German satanic lodges were working to bring into being. So is that like the Freemasonry, the Masonic lodges? They needed a leader. Hitler himself was a member of one of these satanic lodges. Which one? Except, I would like to pass on some of the information which, according to Otti Votovova, she received directly from Franz Bardon. According to her, Adolf Hitler was a member of a 99 lodge. Besides this, Hitler and some of his confidants were members of the Thule Order, which is simply the external instrument of a group of powerful Tibetan black magicians which used the members of the Thule Order for their own purposes. One of the early German Workers' Party members was publisher Dietrich Eckart, often referred to as the spiritual founder of National Socialism. Eckart saw in Hitler the malleable leader he had been seeking, and was soon introducing the new member to the right social circles in Munich and his intellectual friends in the Thule, pronounced Thule society. Although Eckart's role in metaphysical practices as well as in the foundation of the Nazi Party has been marginalised by most historians, it is significant that Hitler clearly understood Eckart's importance. The inner core within the Thule group were all Satanists who practiced black magic. Trevor Ravenscroft, The Spear of Destiny, 1973. As Dietrich Eckart lay dying in 1923, he said, "Follow Hitler, he will dance, but it is I who have called the tune. I have initiated him into the secret doctrine, opened his centers in vision, and given him the means to communicate with the powers." That'll be spiritual powers, probably. Demons and all that sort of stuff. "Do not mourn for me, I shall have influenced history more than any other German." There is also plenty of proof that Hitler and the Third Reich were working relentlessly to destroy Christianity in all of its forms. "I will crush Christianity under my boot like a poisonous toad." Judaism, Christianity, Bolshevism are all bound together. Comrades in agitation, born tools of decay, they possess the same talent to destroy the natural structure of society. Bolshevism is the historical and logical continuation of Christianity. It realizes on a technical level what Christianity has done on a metaphysical level. Adolf Hitler. A quote about Hitler's stance on Christianity from Alfred Rosenberg: He never allowed a member of the clergy to a party meeting or to the burial of a member of the party. The Judeo-Christian plague was now heading towards its end. He said it was downright horrifying that a religion could ever have been possible which literally gobbled up its God and communion. In other words, the host in the Roman Catholic Church, and that it turns to the actual flesh of Christ, and the blood or the wine that they drink turns into the actual blood of the Christ. Is that transubstantiation? A number of his closest accomplices shared Hitler's hate towards the church and his decision to destroy it. Probably the best known among them were Martin Bormann, Heinrich Himmler, Heydrich, Rosenberg, and Herrn Goebbels. Is that was his name? That was his name? Or Goebbels. Gerhard Reitlinger characterizes Himmler as follows. Himmler's profession became destroying Jews, liberals, and priests. According to a note from the Holy See dated March 2, 1943, at the beginning of October 1941, the number of priests from the diocese Varthego might be Varthego, who were under arrest at Dachau, amounted to several hundred, but this number swelled considerably every month as a result of a strong intensification of police measures, which resulted in the arrest and deportation of further hundreds of clerics. All Catholic schools were closed. We did see old footage of a Roman Catholic nun leading Jews or prisoners in a Holocaust camp between a row of fenced wire, right? Like a pathway to who knows what. Don't know if that was after they were liberated or it was actually during that concentration camp when it was up and running. Okay, so all Catholic schools were closed. An order of the Reich governor dated August 1941 said that young Germans could receive religious instructions only in the ages from 10 to 18 years old, and furthermore only at the places of worship and 1 hour per week, which was to be set between 3 and 5 p.m, excluding the days reserved for the exercise of the Hitler Youth. Yeah, they put them through a lot of the exercise routines. You can see that on old footage. It was further ordered that the police had to be informed in advance regarding the time, the place, and the instructional personnel. Several churches were removed from use as places of worship. With many others, this happened later on. Religious services were limited to specific hours. So, did they still have churches up and running there because of that footage, those pictures of Hitler talking to and in the presence of, and talking to Roman Catholic bishops dressed in black, etc., and the Pope? What did Hitler have to say about pure original Christianity and an Aryan Christ? Well, apparently there was no Aryan Christ, according to this Joy of Satan movement in the previous video that we did. Why would they create an Aryan Christ? Leave the hair splitting to others, whether it's the Old Testament or the New, or simply the sayings of Jesus. It's all the same old Jewish swindle, according to these people. It will not make us free. A German church, a German Christianity is a distortion. One is either a German or a Christian. You cannot be both. Hitler made it clear that he was not interested in an Aryanized Christianity or the Aryan Jesus myth promoted by Houston Stewart Chamberlain, von Liebenfels and certain party members. You cannot make an Aryan out of Jesus. That's nonsense. What needs to be done, you say? I will tell you, we must prevent the churches from doing anything but what they are doing now. That is, losing ground day by day, but we can hasten matters. The pastors will be made to dig their own graves, he stated. And here's all the sources, references of these different people and where it's coming from. The following quotes were taken from Hitler Speaks, a series of political conversations with Adolf Hitler, Israel Aims by Herrn Rauschning, first edition 1939. So we suggest, if you can, do personal research on this to see if he actually quoted that, actually stated that in that era. Leave the hair splitting to others, whether it's the Old Testament or the New, or simply the sayings of Jesus. It's all the same old Jewish swindle. It will not make us free. A German church, a German Christianity is a distortion. One is either a German or a Christian. You cannot be both. It's like you're either a Hebrew or an Israelite. You can't be a Hebrew Israelite. Hitler made it clear that he was not interested in an Aryanized Christianity or the Aryan Jesus myth promoted by Houston Stewart Chamberlain, von Liebenfels and certain party members. You cannot make an Aryan out of Jesus. That's nonsense. What needs to be done, you say? I will tell you, we must prevent the churches from doing anything but what they are doing now. That is, losing ground day by day. But we can hasten matters. The pastors will be made to dig their own graves, he stated. Adolf Hitler stated. And the following quotes were taken for the book Hitler's Table Talk 1941 to 44, his private conversations, translated by Norman Cameron and R.H. Stevens, first published in Great Britain, English translation 1953 by Weidenfeld and Nicholson. Fundamentally, in everyone there is the feeling for this Almighty which we call God, that is to say, the dominion of natural laws throughout the whole universe. The priests who have always succeeded in exploiting this feeling threaten punishments for the man who refuses to accept the creed they impose. Bolshevism is the illegitimate child of Christianity. The heaviest blow that ever struck humanity was the coming of Christianity. Bolshevism is Christianity's illegitimate child. Both inventions are of the Jew. Okay, because he's anti-Semitic, isn't he? So he'd say that sort of thing. The deliberate lie in the matter of religion was introduced into the world by Christianity. Bolshevism practices a lie of the same nature when it claims to bring liberty to men, whereas in reality it seeks only to enslave them. In the ancient world, the relations between men and gods were founded on an instinct of respect. It was a world enlightened by the idea of tolerance. Christianity was the first creed in the world to exterminate its adversaries. In the name of love, its keynote is intolerance. Without Christianity, we should not have had Islam. The Roman Empire under Germanic influence would have developed in the direction of world domination, and humanity would not have extinguished 15 centuries of civilization at a single stroke. Let it not be said that Christianity brought man the life of the soul, for that evolution was in the natural order of things. The result of the collapse of the Roman Empire was a night that lasted for centuries. Christianity is a rebellion against natural law, a protest against nature. Taken to its logical extreme, Christianity would mean the systematic cultivation of the human failure. Science cannot lie, for it's always striving, according to the momentary state of knowledge, to deduce what is true, or bring forth what is true, bring to all what is true. When it makes a mistake, it does so in good faith. It's Christianity that's a liar. It's in perpetual conflict with itself. The reason why the ancient world was so pure, light and serene was it knew nothing of the two great scourges, the pox and Christianity. Christianity is a prototype of Bolshevism, the mobilization by the Jew of the masses of slaves, with the object of undermining society. Thus one understands that the healthy elements of the Roman world were proof against this doctrine. Okay, again, remember that this is Adolf Hitler's rants, not the Ministry of the Real Truth. We're just revealing this and exposing it for what it really is, anti-Christian and anti-Semitic. As this movement, the joy of Satan is, obviously, because this is where it's coming from. All this information, they're bringing it out there, putting it out there, or they put it out there. Of old it was in the name of Christianity, today it's in the name of Bolshevism. Yesterday the instigator was Saul, the instigator today Mardochai. Saul has changed into St. Paul and Mardochai into Karl Marx. By exterminating this pest we shall do humanity a service of which our soldiers can have no idea. After all, it was only between the 6th and 8th centuries that Christianity was imposed on our peoples by princes who had an alliance of interests with the Chevelings, whatever that is. Our peoples had previously succeeded in living all right without this religion. I have 6 divisions of essays composed of men absolutely indifferent in matters of religion. It doesn't prevent them from going to their deaths with serenity in their souls. But Christianity is an invention of sick brains. One could imagine nothing more senseless nor any more indecent way of turning the idea of the Godhead into a mockery. Pure Christianity, the Christianity of the catacombs, is concerned with translating the Christian doctrine into facts. It leads quite simply to the annihilation of mankind. It is merely wholehearted Bolshevism under a tinsel of metaphysics. So you need to do research on Bolshevism to find out and establish the claims here as established facts. Yeah. It was Christianity that brought about the fall of Rome, not the Germans or the Huns. What Bolshevism is achieving today on the materialist and technical level, Christianity had achieved on the metaphysical level. Well, the decline of Rome possibly was due to their decadence, being divided, being separate mind, politicians, etc., members of the Senate fighting for position, fighting amongst each other, all that sort of stuff. So it basically fell apart. That's what we believe. Again, you'd have to do your personal research to determine that as fact. Don't take our word for it. Go do the research. Find out the real truth. Yeah, they're quite decadent, apparently. Mass orgies, all that sort of stuff. Caligula, Nero, mad emperor stuff, right? Considering themselves, calling themselves gods of the gods, born of the gods, all this sort of stuff. And they were very anti-Christ, these emperors. One cannot succeed in conceiving how much cruelty, ignominy, and falsehood the intrusion of Christianity has spelt for this world of ours. Is he picking on Christianity from Christ and the disciples to St. Paul, etc., or is he specifically poking the finger at Roman Catholicism? Okay, here he goes on about Jewry, about the Jews. Christianity is the worst of the regressions that mankind can ever have undergone, and he's blaming it on these Jews. Thanks to this diabolical invention has thrown him back 15 centuries. The only thing that would be still worse would be victory for the Jew through Bolshevism. If Bolshevism triumphed, mankind would lose the gift of laughter and joy. It would become merely a shapeless mask, doomed to greyness and despair. The priests of antiquity were closer to nature, and they sought modesty for the meaning of things. Instead of that, Christianity promulgates its inconsistent dogmas and opposes them by force. Such a religion carries within it intolerance and persecution. It's the bloodiest conceivable. It sounds like Satan to Eve, telling her this is the truth, but it's, he's masking a lie. It sounds much like that, a lot like that. Get that funny feeling it's a lot like that. The same thing is happening to music as is happening to beauty in a world dominated by the Chevelings. The Christian religion is an enemy to beauty. I shall never come personally to terms with the Christian lie. Our epoch will certainly see the end of the disease of Christianity. This terrorism in religion is the product, to put it briefly, of dogma which Christianity has universalized and whose effect is to sow trouble and confusion in men's minds. It's obvious that in the realm of belief, terrorist teachings have no other object but to distract men from their natural optimism and to develop in them the instinct of cowardice. As far as we are concerned, we have succeeded in chasing... Oh gosh, very anti-Semitic here. If nowadays we do not find the same splendid pride of race which distinguished the Grecian and Roman eras, it is because in the 4th century the Jewish Christians systematically destroyed all the monuments of these ancient civilizations. It was they too who destroyed the library at Alexandria. The religion fabricated by Paul of Tarsus, which was later called Christianity, is nothing but the communism of today. Bormann intervened. It goes on about the Jews and communism. The Führer concluded, Bergdorf, or Adolf Hitler concluded, Bergdorf has just given me a paper which deals with the relationship between communism and Christianity. It is comforting to see how even in these days the fatal relationship between the two is daily becoming clearer to the human intelligence. It's basically Reichsführer Heinrich Himmler and his work to destroy Christianity. All this propaganda here, all this information pushed by that movement, the Joy of Satan movement. SS men were married and their infants named in ceremonies designed to supplant Christian sacraments, an approach Himmler also applied to church holidays, replacing them with pagan festivals. Page 38. Himmler's mania for racial purity, coupled with his contempt for Christian sacraments, which he considered fit only for the meek, yielded an exotic program to foster proper SS families. Church weddings were replaced by pagan SS rites, presiding over by the bridegroom's commander. Similar protocol governed the christening of infants, some of whom were born in Lebensborn centres, free SS maternity homes set up to encourage conception. Page 42. Celebrating pagan holidays, in a 1936 memorandum, Heinrich Himmler set forth a list of approved holidays based on pagan and political precedents, and meant to wean SS members from their reliance on Christian festivities. The list included April 20, Hitler's birthday, May Day and the summer solstice, a harvest feast, and November 9, the anniversary of the beer hall Putsch. Climaxing the year in Himmler's scheme was the winter solstice or Yuletide, an event that brought SS folk together at candlelit banquet tables and around raging bonfires that harked back to German tribal rites. Page 44. Once the war began, Christian symbolism all but disappeared. Now rune-shaped SS grave markers clearly identified the fallen men of a special order. Page 49. And that's where the above quotes were taken from. The following reveals that not only were all of the top Third Reich leaders strongly anti-Christian, but that they also rejected Christian morals. The following quotes are taken from Goebbels diaries. Goebbels also revealed himself as violently opposed to the Christian churches. He makes it clear he plans to deal with the churches after the war and reduce them to impotence. Editor's insertion, page 9. So, editor's insertion, page 9. So what are they saying here? He's added to it? Okay. Reichsleiter Martin Bormann became Rudolf Hess's successor as Hitler's deputy in party matters. After Hess's sensational flight to England in 1941, he was defecting. He proved to be one of the most radical and uncompromising Nazis, filled with a hatred for the church. Page 99. American newspapers claim that Stalin has been preordained to save Christianity. Page 108. Roosevelt has thought up a new Christian propaganda for the Easter holidays. He compares the road of the vanquished peoples of Europe to the road to Golgotha, and claimed that he, of all people, had been divinely ordained to protect Christianity against neo-paganism. This, of course, with the aid of the exceptionally Christian Soviets, who have distinguished themselves in the past by their religious fanaticism. I don't know if they were actually Christians, because they killed off the Tsar and his family, who were supposedly Christian of sort. Not really too sure on that one. Thought they were Bolsheviks. Completely different Jewish-based religion. And communism and all that sort of stuff. Communism is not anti-Christian as is commonly believed. 80 million Bibles printed in China and counting. Below is a link to an article from Christianity Today. Yeah, because unbeknown to these people, the disciples of Christ founded churches in India and then spread the good news to China. They left a stele there, or someone left one there, with the Aramaic underneath the Chinese. Okay, so that would verify that somebody who knew that ancient Aramaic or the Syriac was actually there, and then they moved on to Japan and the rest of the world, and eventually went around the rest of the world. This is from the accounts of the original ancient Assyrian Church of the East. And if you look at the history of these people, these Aramaeans or these Syriac speaking people being in China, you'll find that a lot of the leaders in those eras realised its truth and approved of it, so they set up churches there. We've already done a video covering this on that stele with the Chinese at the top of it and the Aramaic underneath. On the one hand, it can't be denied that certain measures of the party, especially the decree about crucifixes, have made it altogether too easy for the bishops to rant against the state. The Nazis insisted upon the removal of crucifixes from schools and hospitals. Editor's insert. Herrn Göring. 2. His whole attitude toward the Christian churches, towards the Christian denominations. He quite open and above board. He sees through them and he has no intention whatever of taking them under his protection. Göring 2. His whole attitude towards the Christian churches, toward the Christian denominations. I quite doesn't really make sense. Is quite open and above board. He sees them through and has no intention whatever of taking them under his protection. And here's some more information. It's a dirty, low thing for the Catholic Church to continue its subversive activity in every way possible. Okay, these political divines are about the most loathsome riffraff that we are still sheltering in Reich. The time will come after the war for an overall solution of this problem. Page 168. Prostitution in Berlin is causing us many a headache these days. Okay, we remember a video that was put up, taken down, banned, etc. by a Rabbi Reuven that stated, he quoted the book of Revelations and who caused the problems in the 20s and 30s, stating that Berlin was or became the modern Sodom and Gomorrah because of prostitution, homosexuality, high interest loan rates, inflation, and etc., which supposedly Hitler, it took him 6 years to sort out. He fixed that problem, which Rabbi Reuven's statements about the book of Revelation are comparable to what's translated into English in the Galilean Aramaic, from the Galilean Aramaic manuscript scriptures into English by later born Aramaic speaking translator Victor Alexander. Same statement as what Rabbi Reuven had stated, that it became the city of desolation, okay, because of the evils that they were doing there. This Rabbi Reuven, a rabbinic Jew, points out that the Zionist movement were responsible for that. in the 1920s and the 1930s. Prostitution in Berlin is causing us many a headache these days. During a raid we found that 15% of all women arrested had VD, most of them even syphilis. We must certainly do something now about it. In the longer run we cannot possibly avoid setting up a red light district in the Reich capital similar to those in Hamburg, Nuremberg and other large cities. You simply cannot organise and administer a city of 4 millions in accordance with conceptions of bourgeois morals, page 189. The Führer spoke very derogatively about the arrogance of the higher and lower clergy. The insanity of the Christian doctrine of redemption really doesn't fit at all in our time, or in their time. The Führer, or the leader, cited a number of exceptionally drastic and in part even grotesque examples, whereas the most learned and wisest scientists struggle for a whole lifetime to study but one of the mysterious laws of nature. A little country priest from Bavaria is in a position to decide this matter on the basis of his religious knowledge. One can regard such a disgusting performance only with disdain, page 421. The Catholic clergy is collaborating with the enemies of our country in a truly treasonable manner. I burst with rage when I think that we cannot possibly call the guilty ones to account now. We shall save our vengeance until later. And lots more quotes here. What's this? Go back. Because here it states, this explains how the Vatican helped many of the SS get set up with new identities and places to live, such as in South Africa after the war. The Nazis infiltrated the Vatican as clergy to destroy it from the inside, and they were planning on working to destroy the Protestant churches, but the war disrupted everything. Here is a quote. The ultimate aim of the SS went beyond the eradication of political Catholicism to the destruction of the Church itself as a centre of power and moral authority. Heydrich attempted to discredit the clergy by engineering a number of trials based on accusations of currency smuggling and sexual misconduct by priests and nuns, which were given wide publicity in the SS journal Das Schwarze Korps. So that's a black corps with a dark core. It doesn't take much imagination to figure out the sexual misconduct which has always been the pedophilia, molesting and raping of children within that Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church. He later developed a more elaborate plan to speed the decline and disintegration of organised religion. According to SD agent Wilhelm Heydrich intended to disrupt the Church from the inside by sending his own men to the theological seminaries before training as priests. It's like a Jesuit infiltration, right? They were supposedly sworn to do the same thing. A similar scheme was to be directed against the Protestant churches. Hitler decided to postpone a final reckoning with Christianity until after the war. The above quotes were taken from the book The Killing of SS Obergruppenführer Reinhard Heydrich by Callum MacDonald. No less characteristic was his Reinhard Heydrich plan for destroying the churches to send young, unshakably fanatical National Socialists into the seminaries for priests in order to begin their work on sedition from within. So they thought, well, we'll try put people in there to destroy it from within. And there's where the above quotes were taken from. And there's more claims. If the Catholic Christian is convinced that the Pope is infallible in all religious and ethical matters, so we National Socialists declare with the same ardent conviction that for us too the Führer, or Adolf Hitler, is absolutely infallible in all political and other matters. Reichsmarschall Reich, Marshal Hermann Göring. The Face of the Third Reich, Portraits of the Nazi Leadership by Joachim C. Fest, 1970, translated from the German by Michael Bullock, page 114. And some more here. And it's just endless. There's a lot of information here. Reich propaganda minister Goebbels also played his part. After the encyclical, he intensified the publicity campaign against alleged sex scandals involving Roman Catholic priests that had already begun in the middle of 1935. 15 monks were brought before the courts in November 1935 for offences against the law on homosexuality in a home for the mentally ill in Western Germany. They received severe prison sentences in the intention of endless column inches in the press. Other priests were soon being tried for alleged sexual offences against minors in Catholic children's homes and similar institutions. By May 1936, the press was reporting the trial in Koblenz of over 200 Franciscans for similar crimes. Focusing on allegations of pederasty, the press claimed that the monasteries were breeding grounds of a repulsive epidemic which had to be stamped out. By April 1937, over 1,000 priests, monks and friars were said to be awaiting trial on such charges. Demanding of the Catholic Church offered the mask, more than hinting that homosexuality and paedophilia were epidemic in the Church as a whole and not merely in isolated instances. Particularly offensive, declared the press, was the fact that the Church stood behind the accused and treated them as martyrs. As more trials followed, the propaganda ministry built up a steady campaign to portray the Church as sexually corrupt and unworthy of being entrusted with the education of the young. Such things only went on in the Church where it was suggested they were an inevitable byproduct of the celibacy that was required of the priesthood by the Church. The Catholic Church was a sore on the healthy racial body that had to be removed, declared one article in the Nazi press. The campaign culminated in a furious speech by the Reich propaganda minister himself, that'll be Himmler, right? Delivered to an audience of 20,000 of the party faithful and broadcast on national radio on 28 May 1937, denouncing Catholic corruptors and poisoners of the people's souls and promising that the sexual plague must be exterminated root and branch. It is not the law of the Vatican that rules here among us, he warned the Church, but the law of the German people. And then these Roman Catholics, cardinals, etc., complained to Hitler. Such anti-Christian ideas were widespread in the Hitler Youth and formed an increasingly important part of the party's program for the indoctrination of the young. Children receiving lunches from the National Socialist Welfare Organization in Cologne, for example, were obliged to recite a grace before and after the meal, which substituted the Führer's name for God's when thanks were given. So Adolf Hitler's name was substituted as the name for God. At one training camp for school children in Freusburg, they were told that the Pope was a half Jew, and that they had to hate Anti-Semitism, right? Racially alien teaching of Christianity, which was incompatible with National Socialism. The mother of a 12-year-old Hitler Youth found the following text in his pocket when he came home one evening. The song was also sung in public by the Hitler Youth at the 1934 Nuremberg Party rally. We are the jolly Hitler Youth. We don't need any Christian truth for our leader Adolf Hitler, our leader, always our interceder. Whatever the papist priest may try, we are Hitler's children until we die. We follow not Christ, but Horst Wessel, away with incense and holy water vessel. We follow not Christ, but Horst Wessel, that should be Wessel, if it's German, away with what? Okay, we'll just go with that. We follow not Christ, but a horsed vessel, away with incense and holy water vessel. As sons of our forebears from times gone by, we march as we sing with banners held high. I'm not a Christian nor a Catholic. I go with the SA through thin and thick. Not the cross they sing, but the swastika is redemption on earth. Such propaganda also propagated a fiercely anti-Christian ethic, whose virulence and potency should not be underestimated. Oh gosh, it's just endless. His claims here. There was no need as far as he was concerned. Who's this? The Spear of Destiny, written by one of the Nazi party members. We guess, even it's not naming him, probably Himmler. The capital S for Satanic and Satanism are mine out of respect for our God. The original text is in lowercase. Who's stating this? Unlike Roman Catholic priests, malevolent parasites, and Puritan pastors as submissive as dogs who sweat in embarrassment when you talk to them, Hitler refused to accept the story of the ancient Hebrews as in any way of positive significance in the long history of mankind. There was no need, as far as he was concerned, to assess the value of Christianity, because Nietzsche had already done it to a perfection in a masterful analysis of this religion for slaves, weaklings, and a desiccated residue of racial scum. Okay. Hitler hated Christ and felt only scorn and contempt for all Christian aims and ideals. Dietrich Eckart, yet those who saw him apparently immersed in the gay social round of the Munich beer colours never guessed that behind the jovial facade of this veteran army officer was hidden a dedicated Satanist, the supreme adept of the arts and rituals of black magic, and the central figure in a powerful and widespread circle of occultists, the Two League Group. Was this after the war, when captured by the Allies? Would that be the Americans? In full view of the guards of the condemned cells, who were watchful mainly for the passing of poisons through which their charges might evade the gallows, Wolfram von Sievers knelt in reverence while Harsker incanted the words of a black mass, a final hymn to worship to the powers of evil awaiting his soul on the other side of the grave. Eckhart was on the lookout for quite another sort of pupil. He claimed to his fellow adepts in the Two League Group that he had personally received a kind of satanic annunciation that he was destined to prepare the vessel of the Antichrist, the man inspired by Lucifer to conquer the world and lead the Aryan race to glory. As Dietrich Eckart lay dying in 1923, he said, "Follow Hitler, he will dance, but it is I who have called the tune. I have initiated him into the secret doctrine, opened his senses and vision, and given him the means to communicate with the powers. Do not mourn for me, I shall have influenced history more than any other German." They seem to repeat themselves a lot in this book. When anyone goes far enough in exposing crime and corruption, and even further in an attempt to do something about it, they are always attacked. Nazi Germany was no different. Given the open media of today, the crimes of Christianity can no longer be hidden from the world. These heinous sexual attacks on children have been going on for centuries. Are they centering on the Roman Catholic Church, or all of them? Because it does happen in many others, many branch-offs in the Protestant churches, Baptist churches, etc. The Third Reich did not tolerate this, and for cracking down on the Christian churches and the plethora of child molesting scum, they were attacked by the world. Truth be known, according to these people, the joy of Satan movement, we're guessing, Truth be known, homosexuals who were incarcerated in concentration camps were not arrested for just being homosexuals. The majority were political prisoners, priests, ministers, and other members of the Christian clergy who molested children, such as priests preying upon altar boys. Then Vatican attacked Nazi Germany. The Vatican attacked Nazi Germany for this. Unlike the Communist Soviet Union, the Third Reich in truth didn't attempt to control the private sex lives of German citizens. And here's some quotes. Aside from the communists and Jews, Heydrich's particular hate in the 1930s was devoted to the Roman Catholic Church, and he pursued the persecution of Catholic clergymen with an enthusiasm that exceeded even that of Himmler. The Christian idea of marriage would ultimately have to be abandoned in favour of polygamy, allowing for the fertilization of more Aryan women and a racially driven conception of human partnership that would allow for divorce for the infertile and racially unfit. Okay, because the whole idea was produce more German children. If you couldn't, well. Heydrich and other influential anti-church hardliners such as Joseph Goebbels, Rudolf Hess and Martin Bormann sought to undermine the church's position, that'd be the Roman Catholic Church I guess, by linking individual priests with communism and paedophilia. Shortly after the seizure of power in Bavaria, for example, Heydrich moved against 3 priests who had expressed concern over the treatment of inmates in Dachau concentration camp. In late November, following an investigation, they admitted spreading atrocity stories, and were arrested. Searches of their quarters turned up the inevitable Marxist literature and other evidence associated them with communism, all of which was duly publicised. Heydrich used the case publicly to paint a picture of a communist infiltrated priesthood and to argue for a political police force capable of fighting such a menace. Oh my gosh. In 1935, the Nazis staged a series of trials against members of various Catholic orders, accusing them of international money laundering and immoral, that is, homosexual and paedophile practices. Okay, some more information here. And they go anti-Semitic. Goes into the Talmud and all this other stuff according to it. And these claims. Was this moving on to one of the biggest stumbling blocks that the Jews have created to make Christians believe that Balaam in the Talmud is a secret code word for Jesus Christ? Balaam, the alleged prototype for Christ, was not the fictitious Nazarene, no matter how much Christians rant and rave about this misunderstanding. Okay, you'd have to do your personal research on that. The undermining the Talmud, etc. Satanic Origins of the Ku Klux Klan. First off, this article is not to make any statements in regard to the actions of the Ku Klux Klan. This author is merely sick and tired of the hypocrisy of this organisation and their foolish adherence to Christian beliefs, which has nothing whatsoever to do with their satanic origins. For the past several hundred years there has been this lethal pestilence called Christianity, etc., etc., supposedly invented by the Jews. Christian identity promoted by Native American Indian Richard Butler, founder of Aryan Nations, is another most effective tool and weapon to divide and conquer the Gentiles, and so forth. So this Native American Indian did he create the Christian identity movement, or that one should just have a Christian identity? The Ku Klux Klan has never been Christian, was never Christian to begin with. By clever infiltration, the Jews have gotten control of this organisation by investing it with Christian identity. Christian identity preaches that the Jews are Satan's people. Nothing could be further from the truth. Oh God. Yeah. We know of people that were Christian, into the Christian identity thing. They got some wacky ideas. The real origins of the Ku Klux Klan trace back to the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar were said to have been very wealthy and satanic towards their end and worshipped the head of Baphomet. Now the Catholic Church run and controlled by the Jews. Oh, jeez. They love giving them crap, don't they? Yeah, probably they're saying that the Ku Klux Klan is Knights Templars because they wore the same outfits, well, yeah, without the pillow on their head. Because they had the Red Cross. Because Constantine in his vision was supposedly told by Christ, put this on your shields, your clothing, etc., and then by this sign you will conquer, right? But apparently, according to what's his name, Simpson Jovovich, when he checked out that monument of the Arch of Constantine, on those depicted figures, his face was chipped out, and there was no signs of the cross of his vision on any of those shields, etc., etc. And he claimed himself a god like Apollo and all this sort of stuff. Set himself up as being a god greater than Apollo or something like that. So yeah, you have to check out this to see if it's actually fact, right, or a lot of garbage. The original Ku Klux Klan founded in Pulaski, Tennessee in 1866. The order was disbanded by around 1869 by 6 Confederate officers, including 33-degree Scottish Rite Freemasons Albert Pike and Nathan Bedford Forrest. We actually read that it was organised by 2 brothers during the Civil War, and then it was turned into this racist cult. They wanted like a gentleman's club or something like that, but again, go check it out. The research proved that was actual fact. Forrest was a former Confederate. Okay, so Nathan Bedford Forrest, what they've done in Forrest Gump says, oh yeah, this guy Forrest, Granddaddy Forrest, became the leader of the KKK. Forrest was a former Confederate general and Freemason. He was the first imperial wizard of the KKK. Albert Pike, who was a Satanist, held the office of Chief Justice of the KKK while he was simultaneously Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite of Masonry in a southern jurisdiction. Because there was 2 types of Freemasonry. There's supposedly the Christian orientated one, and then there's one by Albert Pike where they came in and kicked out all the Christians and then messed with it and made it all anti-Christian. So yeah, that would verify if he was anti-Christ, a Satanist, that he was actually in the Masonic order. He was a Freemason. The second Ku Klux Klan was founded. The second Ku Klux Klan was founded in 1915 by former Methodist minister William J. Simmons, and this is when the fundamental Christian Protestant influence emerged that has stuck with the Klan ever since. Convalescing after being hit by an automobile in 1915, Simmons concerned himself with rebuilding the Klan, which he had seen depicted in the newly released film The Birth of a Nation. He obtained a copy of the Reconstruction Klan's prescript and used it to write his own prospectus for a reincarnation of the organisation. So a former Methodist minister reconstructed it and so forth. Okay, here it is here, what this is on the $1 bill, American $1 bill, or dollar bill. Another blatant title is the Grand Cyclops. This has to do with the very important all-seeing eye, which is the third eye of the soul and the sixth chakra, and is also seen on the American $1 bill. This is hardly Christian by any stretch of the imagination. So this person that commented us and says, no, it's not the Egyptian all-seeing eye, etc., etc. It's the rectal, the anal, that is completely full of it, if this is the truth. It's to do with Hinduism. Yeah? The third eye of the soul, which is to do with Hinduism, the sixth chakra, which is to do with Hinduism. Right? And it's also seen on the American $1 bill. This is hardly Christian by any stretch of the imagination. Here's the clans. What's this? The tall hats seem to have originated in ancient Egypt with the Egyptian gods and the pharaohs, and also have strong connections to wizardry and witchcraft. So they reckon the Egyptians, who were black, were responsible for these cone head hats. We were right. The pagan Satanic Origins of Cone-Head Hats by High Priest Don Danko. Communism's Christian roots. Christian theology is the grandmother of Bolshevism. Oswald Spengler. What? Christianity and communism are very close spiritually and ideologically. This is fairly well known concept that has been adopted by various thinkers, from Thomas More to Lev Tolstoy. Didn't he do War and Peace? Communism is not anti-Christian as is commonly believed. What? One technique Christians have used for centuries is that of mind control. Those who attend Christian services or masses subject themselves to being programmed. One naturally becomes bored and begins mindlessly daydreaming or even half nodding off to sleep. Yeah, that's happened. Listening to a sermon and it's monotonous and you start snoring until someone wakes you up. This is when one is most susceptible to their subconscious mind being programmed. This is even worse in the case of small children and even babies whose minds are open and susceptible. In colonial times, church masses lasted all day long. The church usher would carry a long steel pole with a ball at the tip to crack those who nodded off on the head. Church attendance was compulsory, resulting in fines or public humiliation. Yeah, apparently in the Philippines, if you went to their church over there, I don't know if it's Ecclesia Cristo or whatever, and you didn't go, they'd come around, knock on the door and say, well, you didn't go, so you owe us money, something like that. That's what I heard. Verified it with people from the Philippines. You'd come around demanding money. You didn't turn up at that church. You were there a couple of times and you didn't turn up, so we come around to find you and we want money. That sort of thing. Okay, church attendance was compulsory, resulting in fines or public humiliation, such as confinement to the stocks or for a specified period of time if one did not comply. All of this is a conspiracy. The Christian church masses and services are meant to be boring in order to induce a passive and receptive state of mind where one can be programmed without their knowledge. Those who control the Christian program know all about the mind and how to program the populace. They are nothing but a bunch of the worst criminals. All of this is done deliberately to create a slave state. The slave state is the goal of Christianity. The Christians who walk around with the pasty artificial smiles as though in a trance are those who continuously subject themselves to this indoctrination. More and more church attendance and reinforcement turns them into conditioned robots. This is one reason many who are in the process of breaking away from Christianity have a hard time, experience confusion and sometimes fear. People are unaware they are actually being hypnotized. Studying the truth will eventually result in deprogramming one's mind. The fear, doubt and confusion will eventually give way to reason. Okay, so yeah, those theories that Billy Graham used, trigger words, right? He had people in the audience, right, that were triggered by that, and whatever he said triggered everybody else and all this sort of stuff. The music they play, it's all emotional, because music like imitates the heartbeat, all this sort of stuff. So they play that, and then they're talking, people like, and it's suggesting stuff. Speak in tongues, you must speak in tongues, all this sort of stuff. And people just, because they get pressured to do so. Maybe the elders are walking around going, no, stop crying and speak in tongues. And then some people just, like T.D. Jakes, would just go gibbity gobbity gook, make stuff up. It's when the scriptures are actually saying other languages, not some gibbity gook, just making up as you're going along, going dibbity dibbity, all this sort of stuff. Because it's supposed to be prophetic, coming from God, through a certain person. If there's no translator of it, well then, no one can understand it. So the prophecy is not revealed, apparently. But the disciples received the Holy Spirit and spoke in tongues, and the people around them that witnessed it heard them speaking their languages. Like, hey, this guy's a Galilean, a fisherman, etc. How the heck does he know Greek? How does he know Chinese or African or something, What the? So that's what it meant. They're speaking in other languages when they say they're speaking in other tongues. Not making up this jibbity-jabbity language or utterance, as does T.D. Jakes, etc. on those church videos, right? Their meeting videos. What's this? Supposedly in the scriptures. But those mine enemies which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me. Luke 19:27. So we will have a look at that to see if that's actually correct. Because sometimes these people may make stuff up or twist the scriptures, take it out of context, etc. So we're going to have a look at Luke 19:27 to see if it actually says that. Okay, we're looking at the King James Version here because that was like the first Bible in front of us. Wouldn't find it in the Christian Science one. Okay, 19:27. Where does it say this? But those mine enemies, which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me. This is Christ apparently talking to somebody. Okay, and that's what he stated apparently, according to this King James. But those mine enemies which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me. Is that slay them as they're saying here, totally murder them, or embarrass them, shame them in Eastern thought? And when he had spoken, he went before ascending up to Jerusalem. It's obviously talking about Christ. And it came to pass when he was come nigh to Bethphage Gee and Bethany at the mount called the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples. So that was Christ talking. So that's there in the scriptures. And you're saying direct quote from Jesus advocating murder. Different kind of mindset. You may find, we'll have a look in the supposed Galilean Aramaic translated into English, if they're the original manuscripts of what Christ actually spoke and did. We'll see what it says in that one. Where are we? Luke. Luke comes after Mark. Luke 19:27. Luke 19:27. In the Galilean Aramaic New Testament, translated by native-born translator Victor N. Alexander from Mesopotamia, Syria. And it says, "As for those enemies of mine that did not wish I should be king over them, bring them and kill them before me." I'm going to go back a bit to see if Christ actually said that or he was relating a parable. Okay, go back. Luke 19:11. And as they heard these things, he elucidated, it's got a footnote indication there, with a parable, for they were expecting at that very hour it was destined that the kingdom of Allah would be revealed. The kingdom of God would be revealed. And he, Christ, declared there was a man from a big tribe who went to a distant country to set up a colony and return. And he called 10 of his servants, and he gave them 4 sums of money and told them, engage in trade until I return. However, the town people hated him, and they sent a delegation after him, saying, "We do not want him to be king over us." And as he set up the colony and returned, he told them to call in those servants to whom he had given the money, to learn how each one of them did in their trading. And the first one came and said, "My master, I have added 10 sums to your money." And he told him, "Oh, good servant, you have found faithful with little. Take charge of 10 mills. 18. And the second one came and told him, "My master, I made you 5 sums." He said also to this one, "You too take authority over 5 mills. And there came the other one and told him, "My master, behold, here is what you had with me, as I have tied it securely in knots. I was afraid of you, for you are a hard man, and you take what you do not invest, and you harvest what you did not plant." He told him, "According to your own words, I judge you, wicked servant. I knew that I was a hard man, and I took what I did not invest and harvest what I did not plant. Why did you not give my money to the table of offering, and I would come and ask for it with its bounties?" And to the ones who stood before him, he said, "Take from him the sum of money and give it to the one who had 10 times the amount." They said to him, "Our master, but he has 10 times the amount." He told them, "I am telling you that whoever has it will be given more, and whoever has it not, even that which he has will be taken away from him. And as for those enemies of mine that did not wish I should be king over them, bring them and kill them before me." So it's not actually talking about Christ advocating murder. It's a parable of the person who, when he went off, and apparently the people said, "We hate him, we don't want him to rule over us or be king over us." Yeah, they sent a group after him saying, "We don't want him to be king, we don't want you to be king over us." Okay, so those who opposed him, this king in the parable, said, my enemies that did not wish I should be king over them, bring them and kill them before me. So he's not advocating murder, he's just relating a parable of possibly what will happen to those at Judgment Day who rejected him as their Messiah, as their Lord and Saviour, etc. That they will go to their death. So yeah, it's not necessarily advocating from Christ, bring them here, bring those people here and I'll kill them right in front of you. Yeah. So you have to be very careful with these people's claims, people like this, because they obviously got some sort of agenda, hidden motive, probably propagandists, and they're pushing their particular belief system, right, be it religious or anti-religious. Yeah. Would be a very interesting book for people to read. Okay, and it goes on about Charles Manson. And Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, who worked directly, or he worked with director-producer Roman Polanski as a temporary advisor for the 1968 movie Rosemary's Baby. LaVey wanted to play the part of the devil, but this part was given to someone else. According to certain sources, one source being the movie Polanski, LaVey was also insulted and shunned by colleagues of Polanski who were also working on the film. LaVey became very angry and threw a curse through satanic ritual. And he goes on about Charles Manson. And LaVey also hated hippies. And he threw a curse against the hippie movement. And he had a dislike for Susan Atkins, possibly part of Manson's group. Yeah, Manson family member and murderess Susan Atkins. Perhaps it says that she was a dancer as well. And this guy, LaVey, threw some powerful curses. It goes on about the 9/11 incident and the bills, $20 US $20 bills folded in a certain way. Number 11 is a number of chaos, destruction and disintegration according to the Bible, because that Bible is in nearly every home. So many people adhere to Christian teachings and put their faith in it, like the $20 bill. It is a very powerful subliminal tool, much more so than a $20 bill. Haven't really seen an American $20 bill and folded it up to see what they're claiming. The numbers 10 and 12 in the Bible are supposed to be perfect numbers. It goes on about the number 11 and then goes into the scriptures. The truth of Satan's number is 666. Satan's number 666 is the number for the Kabbalistic square of the sun and indicates spiritual power and advancement. Nearly all of the ancient pagan religions emphasized worship of the sun, and so forth. And we have 13 chakras apparently. Christian Mass and how it ties into Jewish ritual murder and all this sort of stuff. And it just goes on and on. Very interesting book with very interesting claims, but one would have to really go and do a personal research and establish the facts, the claimed facts as facts. The evidence has to prove itself as evidence, and in all this writing, these writers have to be proven infallible, irrefutable, in order for their so-called writings to be then deemed infallible and irrefutable. Nobody can deny it because of that, but obviously people can debunk it because people can. And goes into a lot of the scriptures. It makes claims. Third Reich working relentlessly to destroy Christianity. And again, they do repeat a lot of the information that they've put throughout the book, probably for emphasis. As we said, a very interesting book with a lot of details, a lot of claims, supposed facts, etc., etc. You can read it in your own time, at your own leisure, to understand the mind of this particular group and this particular movement, the Joy of Satan movement, and their claims, their belief system, etc. Yeah, we just found it quite interesting because they're making all these claims and facts and stuff, okay, about the Third Reich and their anti-Jewish, anti-Christian, anti-Roman Catholic stance. Okay, and you might find online something completely different. Somebody debunks all this, right? And then you find out from, say, Kampf or whatever, or German records of the time of Hitler's era, right, that this is all bogus, it's all fake, and that he was actually a good Roman Catholic wanting to restore Christianity, stop those who are out to destroy it from destroying it, etc., etc., stopping communism, Russian communism, getting the help of the US President and America, etc., the Allies, but them being proud and saying, well, you know, war is good for the economy, and we'd like to show the world the mighty power of the US military war machine, you know. And apparently all Hitler requested of them was to join them, you know, to fight off and get rid of communism from the world, etc. Yeah, there's so much information out there. You got to sift through all the garbage to find the real truth. It's like those YouTube videos where they say, oh, this former star of this former program ended up like this, you know, and you find out what a load of rubbish. Just somebody's photoshopped those photos to make them look like that. It's total crap. So yeah, we suggest you, if you're going to read this, then, you know, go through it and then define any words you have misunderstandings for, you know, you don't know the meaning of, whatever, because sometimes they can throw you off a sentence, you take it out of context, all that sort of stuff, and do the personal research and determine whether this is all true, fact, evidence, or just total crap. Okay. If you like this particular video, it's brought you some insight, then subscribe to our channel, add your comments, give us a like, and then share this knowledge, this video with your family, friends and others, so they can wake up and be aware of the real truth amidst all the BS that's out there.